Hello, my name is Caitlin, and I'm the author of Super Opponent, and I run this channel. So in this video, we're talking about how to pick your genre. And I filmed this video 4 times, and I'm still going to stutter. So I'm sorry to my editor. But yeah. So in this video, we're talking about how to pick your genre. It's very important that you do this because this is how you determine who your target audience is. I mean, people who like to read the genre you end up picking. You should do this before you start really writing the book, when you have the idea down. You can do it in the outlining phase, but you should be pretty early on. You should not be finishing your outline and then doing this process, because knowing your genre and knowing the readers that are in the genre, you know what they are expecting. And so if you don't know your genre, which typically most authors do, but if you don't know your genre, then you're gonna do that one thing. My nose is really itchy. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was saying something really important. Okay. If you do know your genre before you start writing, you will be able to write it in the expectations of the readers, which will keep them coming. And, with your genres, readers have a specific expectation. If you're writing a historical fiction, they're hoping that it's going to take place in some sort of event that everybody has learned about, and maybe even give them some more insight. That is their expectation. If you're writing a mystery, the most common label for a mystery, but it's not the only thing you can do for mystery, is typically they're looking for a murder or something that happened that you're not going to find out who did it until the very end, and you're just going to get clues and clues. And then you get unexpected! That's what they expect in a mystery. That little mountain. You know the mountain. You know the writer's mountain. I hope so. It's like level 1 of writing, so if you don't, I'm sorry. Put it in the comments and I'll do a video about the writer's mountain if you don't know. So let's just go ahead and talk about how, if you don't know your genre, because sometimes this is pretty normal, then do these steps. And most authors know kind of a broad idea on what their genre is, but it's important that you drill down exactly what your genre is as detailed as possible. That way you can eliminate competition, and you can actually give the reader more insight on what the book is about, and you'll actually get more detailed into who your target audience is, and all those things are good things. Because you subscribed to me, and you watched all the rest of my videos, and you saw in one of my last videos, I talked about business, and I talked about how somebody's opening my door and interrupting me. Shut it. Dang, I just got salty there. Okay, sorry. So all those things, the competition, all that stuff, those are all beneficial. And you subscribed to me, and you saw the video when I talked about business and how you need to know your competition so you know how to fight that. But if you haven't, you should totally go check that one out after this video. Finish this one first. Okay. Step 1 to find your genre. You need to know what the genres are. Research them. Somewhere up here, my editor should have put research on here. You go on the Google search bar and you type in book genres, and you'll get thousands, hundreds of thousands, billions, and I don't know the exact number that Google will put on there. It's 1 out of, we came up with blah, 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 blah results. Well, there'll be plenty of zeros behind there, or there'll be a lot of digits. There's a lot of genres up there, and very, typically, as an author, you should have at least 10 memorized, okay? You should know 10. I'd say list 10. So research what they are. Go into detail and actually know what they are and what they contain, okay? Some people think that a fantasy is about rainbows and unicorns or some medieval times. And that's not always the case. I mean, my book's a fantasy, and it takes place in modern day, and they have cell phones, and they don't use magic for everything. They should, but they don't. So, I want to make it a story. Otherwise, they could snap their fingers and all their problems would be solved. It's not that simple, so that's why you got to research it. So, yeah. 2, you need to break your book down into the basics after you know these genres, so you know what to break them down into. So, your plot. What drives your plot? What is your plot? What is the main idea of your story? What is the main problem that's happening? That is going to be a huge indicator, probably the biggest one. Yeah, the biggest, is it? Yes, the biggest one. Is it? I'm double checking. It is the biggest one that you gotta know, okay? If your main plot is a crime, I'm being interrupted by a spider. You, 'You. 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 ' Now I'm not gonna stop looking at it. Hey, it's not bugging me. Okay, so if your plot revolves around a crime case that you don't know who caused the crime, typically that is the very stereotypical mystery. Sorry for all you mystery authors that don't like it when people just assume that that's a mystery, but it's just very normal. Does your book take place in a war zone? Is your character going to war? Typically that can be an action, or that can even be an epic journey, especially if they got in prison and they have to escape, or they escape and try to find their way back. That'd be a cool book. Somebody should come up with that. Okay, so they probably already have. If you have come up with that book, I want to read it, please put it down. Okay, so anyway, you get it. Second, you're going to want to know your setting. Where and when does your book take place? Okay? If it takes place in modern day, don't say it's medieval fantasy. You're going to turn readers off. And me. Okay? If it takes place futuristically, that's typically going to lead towards more the sci-fi. Not always, but typically. If you're going for historical, you're going to want to take place in an event, so that's going to take place in your place. And when, you're going to want to have the dates right, and you're going to want to do your research on that event as well. But, you got to know these places. My book is an urban fantasy because it has magical elements. My characters cast magic. But it takes place in modern day, which is why it's urban. Typically, the stereotypical, if I just put fantasy on there, then it could take place medieval times, which is very normal. Or it could take place in another world, which is also very normal. But saying urban fantasy tells my readers right off the bat, or my viewers, because they're not my readers yet, right off the bat that this is going to take place with cell phones and animals that walk on... No, they don't all walk on. With grass and roads and people and stores and the internet. That's what all of that's telling them, that it takes place in modern day. So it's important that I put that down there, which is why you need to know when and where. Thirdly, when breaking down your book, do you have any fake creatures? Creatures that don't exist. Do you have any zombies? Vampires? Demons? Angels? Come here. There's 2 spiders in this room. There's 2 spiders in this room. I must be popular with spiders. Actually, I haven't been in this room in a long time. I think I might have something. You stay over there! You're both really tiny. I can barely see you, but that's why okay. Sorry. Typically, if you have some sort of monsters, you're going to kind of lean towards more the horror or paranormal area. And that can also be sci-fi or fantasy, aliens. Not saying... aliens might be real, but they're still a creature. You know what I mean? Okay, anyway, the last thing you're going to want to break your book down into is your relationships. How do your characters interact with each other? Is there a strong love interest subplot? Well, then you're going to want to put some sort of romance in your genre that you label it as. Or are they all just trios that are going to go on an adventure that might become an epic journey? Or is your character just a person who likes to stand alone all the time and could care less about other people? That person's badass, and I will read that book. But, that typically is not going to be a romance. Is your character a slut and sleeps with everybody? Or a whore? Or both? Actually, be and. Then you might go for erotica. So, you get it. Why am I scrolling on the computer? Okay. Anyway, so now the third step that can actually be listed on the screen now. You want to combine/eliminate the genres that you know. So, combine genres. Put them in lots of categories. My book has a big long label across it, and it says urban fantasy, paranormal, romance. That's 4 words that indicate what this is. There's a whole bunch of fantasy novels out there, but they don't all have paranormal. Most of them do, but they don't all have paranormal. And they definitely don't all have romance, and they definitely do not all take place in modern day. So my readers know right off the bat that my book has a strong romantic subplot. So if you don't like romance, you are not my target audience. Do not read my book. Actually, you should totally go read it because you love me, but you get the point. So, it gives the reader more expectation before they even see your cover. Your cover is very important, But yeah, combine your titles. There's a whole bunch. You can just look up a whole bunch of books, and typically they all have more than one label on them, because that gives it more specific, and that will give, more specific target audience you have. The better and more personal you'll get, the more books you'll sell. So then there's number 4 that will be listed somewhere. What are the ages of your characters? This might have been able to be put in the breaking down, but it's so important that I think it should be just put in a category on its own, because typically this is going to tell whether you have a young adult or adult fiction or a children's novel. Most of the time, young adult takes place with high schoolers or college kids who somehow their parents don't get in the way of their trouble that they have to get into and the battles they have to fight. And how do they respond to this? Are my teenagers super mature? Typically not. Teenagers are not mature. Typically they are wild heads and they don't have a head on their shoulders. At least the ones I've met. The ones I create in my head have a little bit of one, but they're not all there. They're not mature. So they don't respond in a very reasonable fashion, which causes more problems. They act before they think most of the time. That's going to go for young adults, and it's very entertaining, and I'm a young person. Typically the target audience is going to want to relate to characters that are their ages, so my target audience is high school, college kids. Now, if you're not high school, college kids, you should still check out my book, because it is an awesome book. Duh. But yeah. But then there's the adults, which typically takes place with characters who are 28 or 30 or maybe even 60. They experience problems that are more realistic. They're not always realistic. I mean, where's the entertainment there? But they're typically more realistic, and the characters respond in a more mature fashion that wouldn't have the reader rolling their eyes and be like, no! All the time. You still have to do that. But not all the time. And typically more mature adults will read these books. Now, just because you're an adult doesn't mean you don't read young adult fiction. That has nothing to do with it. But that's just kind of the lean towards when it comes to finding your target audience and what people read. So that's my big, long, stuttery spiel on how to pick your genre. This video I filmed 4 times now, and this one doesn't work, or I will be mad. But anyway, go ahead and check out the rest of my stuff. I've been trying to get my camera to work, and I'm very irritated right now. It better work! Okay. Sorry. It quit working, and it made me mad. Okay, so I screamed at it a few times, and now it looks like it's working, but I'm not sure.